Now, Sally, explain to our listeners what oxalates are and where do they come from and how they're affecting our health.
Yes, hi. Yeah, oxalates are a natural compound that's in nature. Plants make it, and we consume quite a bit of it when we eat a lot of today's popular plant foods like spinach and nuts. And it can cause some serious health problems under the hood in ways that are a little subtle until they're not.
Now the oxalates are what most experts call superfoods. So if they're in superfoods, how can superfoods be superfoods when they're affecting our health?
Yeah, we're getting all kinds of funny messages about foods and what to eat, and a lot of it just is really lacks solid science behind
Mm.
it. It's really so much now is based on marketing, and the superfood concept has been very handy for marketing,
So
but it's
it,
not necessarily working for our health.
okay, so if I can say this, you're not a proponent of the vegan diet.
Yeah, that's true. I have done it myself for
Oh,
8 years.
and what was your experience?
Yeah, I was vegetarian for 8 years and then switched to vegan when certain books came out promoting the
Mm.
vegan diet and did that for another 8 years. And it really deteriorated my health. And I was so convinced I was so perfect in my nutrition, I could not put together that I was exhausted and unable to function and having joint problems, brain issues, and never connected it with the diet.
Interesting. So because mainstream media, all your superstars are all touting being going on a vegan diet and how healthy it is for you. But in your case, you had a bad experience, and you chalked it up
Yeah,
to oxalates.
us baby boomers tried all that back in the 70s and 80s,
Yeah, tell me
and
about it.
nobody's listening to the fact that it didn't work for us. And so it's a new generation trying it out all over again in a bigger, large way in a world where online social media lets ideas flourish quickly.
So what's the signs of too many oxalates in the diet?
Too many oxalates in the diet. Sometimes there's no signs at all. And if you're a little child, it might be that you're a baby with cradle cap and fussiness and tantrums and reading problems and performance problems because it's a neurotoxin. And in adults, even in children, it can cause depression and mood swings, irritability, problems with thinking and focus. It's also a gut irritant and can lead to digestive disorders. Your kidneys are responsible for getting it back out of your body. And so the urinary tract can get into trouble with stuff like nighttime urination, irritable bladder, kidney problems, including kidney stones.
What you're
And then
saying.
there's
I'm sorry.
pain.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's also pain. The connective tissues get in trouble with oxalates, and you can end up with arthritis and things like fibromyalgia and inflammatory conditions, and eventually autoimmune type problems.
By eliminating your oxalates, basically what I'm hearing you say is you're going to eliminate a lot of medications that big pharma makes money off of.
That is true. You certainly do feel liberated, and a lot of things just resolve. And that's where the proof is. In real life, you move these things out of your diet and watch what happens, and it's quite revelatory.
So, what was your own personal experience? I mean, you said you were first a vegetarian, then you became a
Hmm.
vegan. You had all these nasty things happening, then you changed your whole mindset. How long ago was that?
Yeah, I quit being a vegetarian and vegan. Oh gosh, well over 20 years ago,
Wow.
and eventually, gradually added in meat, but I didn't know about oxalates. And what I had done is add sweet potatoes into my diet, which is a very high oxalate food. Sweet potatoes. I had on the vegan diet made myself sensitive to wheat and beans, and I needed a starch. And I kept my Swiss chard. I kept my oxalate foods in the diet, so I didn't really fully benefit from switching. It's really, you can still have an oxalate aware diet even as a vegan or vegetarian. You can really help yourself reduce the effects of plant toxins, oxalate being the worst one, even if you're still heavily plant based. It's not a nutritionally adequate diet, but you
Right.
can do that. But you can add meat, but if you're still eating your green smoothies and your juices and your sweet potatoes and your white potatoes and using dark chocolate as your treat, these are all high oxalate foods.
Okay.
And you're going to continue to create potential problems.
Okay. So, but you learned the hard way.
Yes,
Share
I
your
did.
share your story with everybody. Okay.
Right. I started having some pain issues and problems as a 12-year-old. And when I got into college, I had foot problems that persisted. I had to leave Cornell when I was getting my nutrition
Hmm.
degree and get surgery on both feet and did not fully recover and worked on recovery in all kinds of ways. Eventually, I got off the painkillers and crutches and wheelchairs and orthotics and sort of seemed semi-normal, but I really couldn't function without shoes. I couldn't even stand at the kitchen sink
Wow.
and had foot pain for 30 years. And when I went on a low oxalate diet, it was for arthritis because I had started having arthritis as a 12-year-old. Here I'm 49 going on a low oxalate diet when I finally had the insight that all of that Swiss chard and sweet potatoes was connected to my arthritis. And lo and behold, my feet just got better out of the blue. And so did a sleep disorder. I had to quit my career. I was having so many health problems and later found out that I had this sleep disorder. I was so exhausted, I didn't know I couldn't sleep. And that disappeared too. And all kinds of things started resolving. I was floored, and that really inspired a lot of research and outreach effort, free in my community, teaching and discovering that I wasn't an oddball, that this is a really common problem that we've completely overlooked.
Are you getting much pushback from the medical community because of your approach?
Well, I think that there has been a war set upon us, fighting about how much plants to eat and whether meat is okay in the diet. And this is part of that whole debate about whether it's really safe to push a plant-centric diet.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a
So,
while. I mean, they're
yeah.
hard and heavy right now. So basically, what I'm hearing from you say then, if you're eliminating a lot of plant food in your diet, I would think that you eat lower carbohydrate.
Yeah, well, there's the mainstream diet is so high in really crummy carbohydrates.
Hmm.
The stuff in the grocery store is just not great food. And we should be having a debate about what is food. And some of that stuff that's carby is also just garbagey.
Processed
And
junk.
so the garbage is a good place to start.
I like that. That's
And
good. Garbage. That's good.
yeah, the garbage. So that's really important. And that's, I think, where people get confused because I'm saying basic whole foods like sweet potatoes and spinach and Swiss chard and beets are a problem. That doesn't mean that you should run to the donut shop.
Right. We're, we have to take a break, so we're going to put you on hold a second, okay?
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back. Sally, how did you know it was oxalates that was causing your pain, your inflammation? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, that is a great question. How do you connect the oxalate to these things? It's really tricky. You can't really do blood tests or anything like that. And so it really is about evaluating your diet. Do you have high exposure to high oxalate foods? Do you eat a lot of nuts and bran and spinach and dark chocolate? If you have that exposure, chances are there's too much oxalate in your system because we can see it in pathology studies where once you're over 50, you have at least an 85% chance of having calcium oxalate crystals forming in your thyroid gland, one of the
Really?
major glands of the body. That's a pathology that's sort of normalized because these foods are so normalized. And another diet pattern, that people go towards these days is when you go to keto, people tend to rely more on dark chocolate and spinach and some of these
Uh huh.
higher oxalate foods. Or if you go gluten-free, you move from gluten to very high oxalate things like quinoa, teff, buckwheat. These gluten-free things are much worse in oxalate. So you can see the exposure. That's going to be a problem. You can also see vulnerability if there's been leaky gut and gut problems, a history of bariatric surgery. These things increase the amount of oxalate that moves from food into your blood. So your exposure goes way up with that gut problems. And of course, there's this vicious cycle. So, and then we look at, how's your performance, how's your health, how's your pain levels, and if any of that stuff is not good, there's room for improvement. So you try the diet, and you watch, and you see your sleep gets better, your bladder's happier, your
Hmm.
kidneys are happier, your pain levels go down. It's really trial and error, and you can see it, especially if you really learn it. It's confusing. There's a lot of subtleties to understand. That's why my book attempts to explain a huge amount of things that are invisible to us. And once you sort of get the picture of how this works, it starts to come into focus.
Well, how widespread is this then?
Yeah, I'm beginning to think, after all these years of working with people, that humanity in general is eating way past their capacity to handle this toxin. and that there's a certain degree where we're all affected by it. And that means that your basic potential in life as a new child is being influenced by how much potatoes and sweet potatoes and peanut butter your parents are giving you. And that's a totally radical thing to say, but that seems to be what we're witnessing as a community of growing awareness about this issue.
This also makes a lot of sense because as I told you, I'm a firm believer in low carb eating, and low carb eating means low oxalate eating because you're not eating those foods. All right, but it
For the
also,
most part.
yeah,
For the most part. I
exactly.
mean, some people get into trouble with keto because it's too many nuts.
Yeah, I don't eat nuts very, very seldom. But
Yeah.
it also explains when a person eats like me. I call it eat like Lance, and they take a break and they eat the other things that have all these oxalates. And next day you have a lot of pain, more inflammation,
Mhm.
more swelling, stiffness,
Mhm.
soreness. Makes a lot of sense. And you said there's no blood test to check for this then.
Not really. Yeah. And sometimes you'll catch it in the urine test because of course the kidneys have to traffic
Right.
this stuff and get it out of your system. And if you get lucky, you may catch it at a moment when it's obviously high in the urine. And that's something to take seriously.
How often does that happen?
Well, we really haven't bothered to pay attention to how it cycles and spikes through the day. If someone has maybe 7 voids during the day, there may be 3 of them that are high in oxalate. There's also this sort of weekly, monthly, and perhaps annual variations in excretion of oxalate that we don't understand. And if you're changing your oxalate intake level or the intake of these precursors that can become oxalate in the body, that'll influence how the body's handling it. So behind the scenes, the body is managing the influx of a toxin and managing its excretion in ways we haven't studied properly.
Okay, so
You
you've,
can see it when you start working with it clinically, but there's a lot of variability from person to person and sort of moment to moment.
okay, so you've got these oxalates in the diet. You're taking all these foods that have oxalates in them. Is there any way to prepare the foods to neutralize this?
No,
It's
heat does
still there.
not remove oxalate. It does not destroy oxalate, oxalic acid, or the calcium
Mm,
oxalate crystals in the food. Some foods will leach. If you boil, say, broccoli in a lot of water, you can leach out a third to a half of the soluble oxalic acid into the water if you throw out the water. Now, if you turn it into soup and maintain that water, then it
wow.
doesn't do you any good. It's good.
I
But
bet
that's really your only option is to boil some of it away.
that's it.
And sometimes you can remove the parts. So if you take certain fruits, you get rid of the parts where the oxalate's hanging out, and the juices are much lower in oxalate. So you could maybe have some pomegranate juice where the whole pomegranate's really high in oxalate.
So fruit has a lot of this in it as well then.
Yeah, the fruits tend to have a lot of these calcium crystals, so that's more the insoluble oxalate. And those crystals, you don't get them into your bloodstream. They're just gut irritants that can wear away the tooth enamel and cause abrasion in the GI tract.
Okay, so which fruits are the worst?
The worst fruit of all is star fruit, and then that's a real popular food in Southeast Asia and Brazil and so on. And people literally can die from star fruit and star fruit juice.
Really?
We don't use that here. Yeah, it's kind of the spinach. It's another superfood in those cultures. And for us, it's blackberries, kiwis, and pomegranate, and forgetting. Then there's things like turmeric. These superfoods
Turmeric too, huh?
are yeah, the whole root. But if you use curcumin extract,
Different.
that's an example of how you've removed it in the process of processing it. So the curcumin extract has almost no oxalate, whereas whole root turmeric is really high.
You do realize that balance of nature is not going to like you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not here to to minimize the truth for our convenience. We're really hung up on a lot of ideas. It makes us a little bit reluctant to take on anything that counters our present ideas.
Okay, so paint a picture for our audience, our listeners, what you eat in a day to avoid the oxalates. What's Sally's diet look like?
Well, I'm not a big fan of people mimicking my diet
Okay,
because in the world of people like myself who've overdone the Swiss chard and sweet potatoes and the healthy eating, we've really damaged our systems. We've damaged our gut. We've damaged our immune system dreadfully. We've probably damaged our bone marrow and the quality of our cells. So we end up with problems where we're more sensitive to foods and we really have to customize the diet. So becoming oxalate aware, you analyze what you're eating now and you gradually take out the worst offenders. Most people are only using 4 or 5 of the worst offending foods. Maybe you're hung up on buckwheat and spinach and almonds, and you start removing them from your diet. And hopefully you're going to replace that with whole food animal proteins, because many people, especially women, are under eating protein and need to do more of it, especially early in the day.
Okay, so give me an example. What's your day look like?
I'm a big fan of sardines and fish and pork and
Girl.
quality meats and, good dairy foods. If you can get high quality cheese and raw milk, eggs, all those things are foods that have been demonized, and people are a little reluctant to use them and think they should, only have a occasional card deck size piece of meat. But I think that's a mistake. I have this ancestral point of view that says we've been hunting and fishing for a very long time, and that's been part of our success as a species here on the planet.
You got that right. Amen to that one. Yeah, because I'm a firm believer in low carb eating. I also only eat twice a day, most days of the week. I have
Yeah,
breakfast
low
and I have
carb
dinner.
makes it really easy.
Yeah.
You're not steaming for food all the time.
Well,
2 meals does it.
stable blood sugar. I burn energy, fat real easily. I'm
Yeah.
very active. I train people all day long. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be
It's fun
69
to
in June.
feel
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, absolutely. You don't feel your
The way
age.
you eat is so critical to that.
Uh-huh.
If you really want to feel good, age well, perform well, have fun.
Have you ever walked through the
Absolutely.
grocery store and felt like telling people putting stuff in their grocery cart to stop that? To put it back, it's bad for them?
Well, I definitely walk to the grocery store, and I've had conversations with people in the produce department when they're trying to pick out what greens to buy
Uh-huh.
and point it out. And a lot of my followers have conversations. They'll look at somebody's cart in the store and see all these high oxalate foods, and they'll say, "Do you have joint problems, or do you run to the bathroom a lot?" And they'll describe these symptoms. And one person said, "I don't, but I'm buying all this. This is my daughter's shopping list. She has all those things." So they're out there helping each other. There's a lovely desire once you realize, boy, this is an easy fix. Take out a few bad foods and learn what the alternatives are, and a whole lot of great things can happen.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, you're doing a good job out there. Keep getting the message out there. Is there some way I can help you here in this market to get that message out more?
Oh, I'm sure there is. Definitely, we need to find ways to collaborate and help people who are in positions to help others, physicians and other healthcare people. That's where we're turning for help. You go to all your various healthcare options saying, "Hey, my life isn't great. I have this fatigue and this pains and this and that. And all my tests look fine, and nobody can tell me what's wrong." I would love to help them help their clients and patients.
Okay, so we can get your book online. It's
Yes.
Toxic Superfoods: How Oxalate Overload is Making You Sick and How to Get Better. That's on Amazon too, right?
It's everywhere books are sold. You can get a physical copy. You can get the electronic ebook. You can get an audiobook. It's also available in Spanish and is coming out in German in a couple of
Oh,
weeks.
wow. Do you ever do Zoom seminars?
I do Zoom seminars for sure. At least 2 times a month, people can come to a group session with me where I'm teaching and helping them. I'm also coming out with a data guide, a companion to toxic superfoods that helps people really get into the nitty gritty of how much oxalates are in the food.
Okay, how do they find out more about your seminar?
Come to my website, sallyknorton.com, and you can look at current events and sign up there. There's also a shop and support page where you can get a cookbook and lots of free information there. Definitely reach out to us at sallyknorton.com.
You can also get your book there too, as well.
You can get some things there, but I don't sell toxic superfoods. I'm
Okay.
not a retailer of the book, but you can get it anywhere, and your library probably has it by now, too.
Okay. So SallyKNorton.com. Sally, really appreciate your time. I'm going to push what you're doing. Great job, girl. Excellent out
Awesome.
there.
It's so nice to have you on the team. Thank
If
you.
you get out to Phoenix, let us know. We'll have you come on live on my show.
Oh, for sure. That'd be great.
Take care, Sally. Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sally K Norton. She holds a master's degree from Cornell University and a master's degree in nutrition and public health. You can get her book online at Toxic Superfoods: How Oxalate Overload is Making You Sick and How to Get Better. This is why I'm a proponent of low carb eating, because when you eat low carb, you eat low oxalates. But it also makes more sense what she's saying here, that all the oxalates in plant-based foods, because that's where you find them. You don't find them in meat. You don't find it in chicken, fish, pork, seafood, none of it. You find it in plant-based foods. It's everywhere. It also makes sense when a person watches their carbohydrate intake, they're eliminating a lot of these foods. And by eliminating a lot of those foods, you have inflammation that goes down. So you chalk it up to low carb eating and also low oxalate eating.